Before we start, just a quick reminder. The views and content shared on this podcast are for entertainment purposes only and are not a substitute for professional advice. Please check the full disclaimer in the show notes for more information.
Welcome to Self-Centered, the podcast that's all about you. We're your hosts.
I'm Allie, a therapist and life coach.
And I'm Katie, a fitness coach and personal trainer. We know what it's like to feel burnt out, taken for granted, and like your life revolves around everyone but yourself.
By learning to trust yourself, prioritize your needs, and set healthy boundaries, we help you break free from guilt, overfunctioning, and toxic patterns that keep you stuck in relationships and a life that doesn't truly serve you.
Join us each week as we dive into the tools, stories, and mindset shifts you need to create a life that centers you.
Because being self-centered isn't selfish, it's essential. Welcome to the podcast. This is part 3 of 3 episodes about therapy. So we started by talking all about therapy, question and answer. And then last time you learned about therapy versus coaching. What are the differences? When does it make sense to use which service? And then today we're going to talk about overcoming shame and internalized stigma about therapy. So our society definitely stigmatizes mental illness and therapy, and we'll get into what that looks like and sounds like, but we really want to talk about and debunk that. So if any of y'all want to go to therapy or have considered it, or people have said, hey, maybe therapy would be helpful, but you just feel like, well, if I go to therapy, that means something's wrong with me or I'm crazy or whatever, that we can help you overcome that so that you can actually get support.
Yeah, what's crazy is I actually had a client today that brought this up in a similar way. More so in the not healthy mindset perspective of it. And we had to come back around and reframe. And she initially started relating to the physical side of things that, oh, well, I just can't show when I have, something hindering me or an injury, or I just have to be tough. I just have to not let people see my weakness. But then that also transcended into, well, what about with the mental side of things? And because we have more holistic conversations in a lot of my sessions, and that was a piece of it is, okay, well, that was very much for context. She's in her 80s and she grew up during World War II. Yeah. And fled Germany with her family. And so there's that, what's the word?
Context?
No, that age demographic, generation, that generation, and many of the surrounding generations, really people from 50 to 90-year-olds right now, they had a upbringing that really did communicate, oh, you have to be tough. You have to stifle things down. You have to just push through. And so physical and mental struggles were not things that were welcome to be talked about. And I think that probably perpetuates in our society because those people are the people who's alive and having babies today. So it is very generational. So you can't really blame yourself if you have this mindset and if you feel guilty about having an attitude that, oh, well, I shouldn't pursue therapy because it makes me weak, because this is just what you were brought up in, and it's time to reframe that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think everything that we do in order to psychologically cope with our experiences makes sense in some way and is adaptive in some context. And so when I think about active war, I think about, well, that's not really the time to be like, oh, what am I feeling in my body? It's I'm feeling like shit in my body and I have to function and get through the day. And almost I need to not be fully aware of what's going on in order to keep going. So it's a little bit of denial or minimization during those experiences and those times actually is adaptive and makes sense. And it's just that now it doesn't serve you anymore because now you're not in World War II, and now you're safe and you can actually let yourself be more at ease and acknowledge these things and work through these things so that you don't have to stay stuck in that place of just tolerating and bearing these burdens that you could just put down now.
Yeah.
The reason that I wanted to do this episode is because one of my clients asked for it. She listens to the pod. You know who you are. And she said, I just want everyone to do therapy. And, I just want you to do an episode saying, anyone can do therapy. Therapy is for everyone. And, technically, since I am a therapist, I have to be technical and say that therapy is for people who meet criteria for it. But honestly, in terms of my ideals and the way I think about it, therapy is for everyone, right? We're just not allowed to give it to you unless you meet certain criteria, but that's where coaching can come in. So go back and listen to the last episode if you want more about that. But yeah, the goal here is to empower you to see therapy as a tool for self-awareness, healing, and growth. And that, this is just about growth and personal evolution. I mean, the therapy has become medicalized, so it has become this therapy is for people who have something wrong with them, and that's why insurance covers it. You know what I mean? But that's not actually the case. Therapists have to prove, they meet criteria for this, but then I'm not working with you as a depressed person. I'm working with you as who you are and what's going on for you. It's so much more holistic than the way that it's been reduced and oversimplified by the medical model.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think it is important to acknowledge, and I'm saying this as someone who feels this way many times, that you aren't broken. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I remember every time that I have approached therapy and I've said, I really need therapy, either starting therapy for the first time in a season, or even when I feel man, I really need to go to therapy for a singular session, I needed it that day.
Yeah.
I do feel broken on those days. Mm-hmm. And that's true. That is how my body feels, because I'm feeling disconnected or feeling the sense of loss from the things that I wish I had. I know, I have it's executive dysfunction essentially. I'm I miss my brain. And so that's something that of course I'm working on in therapy. But if I internalized that and made that my identity and said, it's not just that I'm feeling broken because I'm missing this piece of me. Mm-hmm. It's that I am broken and I'm, crazy or I'm beyond help. That would be a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, would say that's emotional reasoning. So it's, I feel this way, so that must be true, right? So I feel broken, so I must be broken. Or I feel guilty, so I must have done something wrong. Or I feel angry, so they must be wrong, right? But feelings aren't facts. So your experience is totally valid, and you don't want to make it mean something that it doesn't mean. Right. So you're not broken. You're not crazy. You're not weak. You're not too sensitive. And we'll get more into that. But that's really what the stigma is. That's what we're told and what we internalize. So if you have had those thoughts before, you're not alone. It is not weird. It is completely normal, because we internalize what our society teaches. And all of it is implicit, meaning no one sits you down in a classroom and says, hey, you're crazy and broken and this and that, if this, because if it was that obvious that them literally saying that, we would be like, no. But it's because it's these little sneaky experiences we have where I'm a kid who's sad and my parent says to me, toughen up. This world is harsh, and if you don't toughen up, you'll never make it. So now what do I internalize? In order to survive and be okay, every single time I feel a certain way, I need to actually avoid that and distract from that, right?
Yeah.
And of course, then what's going to happen is, because you're human, you're going to keep having feelings and you're going to keep trying to avoid them, and you're going to start to internalize, why does this keep happening to me? I'm not toughening up. Oh no, I'm not going to be able to handle the world. And then imagine what that does for your self-esteem and your beliefs about being able to deal with things, right? These things snowball so quickly. So that's why I think it's really important for us to talk about this, even if you don't want to go to therapy, but just to destigmatize the human experience of having feelings that aren't happiness. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So therapy is part of personal evolution. It is not a sign of failure. It can really help you level up and get to know yourself. And it's a strength, right? Like choosing to go to therapy and saying, I'm not going to avoid this. I'm going to face whatever's going on and explore whatever's going on so that I can understand it better. I mean, that's huge. And that is an act of self-respect for yourself, because you're saying, hey, like the way that I think of it is I go to therapy when something that I'm dealing with in terms of like, I'm thinking about it and I don't understand it and it keeps coming up and I'm feeling a certain way that doesn't feel good and it's like coming into my life too much. To me, it's like, okay, it's bigger than me. Versus when I go to therapy, then it's like having that other person where you can be like, what the heck is going on? And you like talk through it together and figure it out. It's almost like you're like taking this like ball of yarn that isn't a ball of yarn, right? It's just like a bunch of yarn all over the place. It's cut in some places, frayed in some places. There's like something on it, like that spilled, you know, and you're like, okay, I'm cleaning this. I'm like braiding this back together. I'm like putting this all together, winding it up into a ball. And now I can hold it in my hands and I can look at it and understand it. And now it's smaller than me, right? Yeah. So going to therapy isn't really about getting rid of the yarn. It's more about, oh, I understand it now and I can hold it now and I can relate to it now. I can put it in a place in my life where it's not getting in the way. And I can actually usually, oh, I actually like what this ball of yarn did for me, you know, and who I am. You can like take what you want from it and what aligns. So, all right. So let's talk about why does the stigma around therapy even exist? So we've already talked about this a little bit, but there's these like cultural myths and misconceptions that therapy is for crazy or broken people. And that's not true. It's for self-awareness, healing, and personal growth. And that mental health struggles mean you're weak. And no, that's not true. They're often, like I was saying earlier, adaptive responses to life circumstances that just have stuck around. Because if you think of like operating software for a computer, when you go through an experience and then you adapt to it by thinking and feeling a certain way, by following certain beliefs or like rules that you've created for yourself in order to survive, in order to handle those feelings, and maybe it is by avoidance, right? Then what ends up happening is it is helpful during that time. But then when that context is done, when that circumstance in your life is over, because you have that operating software and you don't know how to like eject it. I'm a therapist. I'm not a tech person. So whatever you do to get rid of software, put it in the trash on your computer. I don't know. What is it? Delete
Girl,
it?
I'm not a
Delete
software
it?
tech either.
I know, right? And so whatever you need to do to like be like, okay, well, I need a software upgrade, right? And so now I have these new things that I want to do. So I need a different software for that. And therapy can help you with that, right? It doesn't mean you're weak or that something was wrong with you or crazy or broken just because you were operating a certain way. It made sense the way that you were operating based on those circumstances. And now the circumstances have changed, hopefully for the better. And so now you don't have to be in survival mode anymore, in the operating system of survival mode. And you can come back to just feeling good and loving your life. Yeah. That's the goal. So one of the other things I want to talk about is this double standard that we have between emotional health and physical health. So I've always thought about it this way. Like whenever I notice that I'm judging myself for the way that I'm feeling, I always think, well, if this were physical, then would I be having these same thoughts about the way that I'm feeling? So if someone breaks a leg, what do? You don't say, oh no, I'm broken. If I go get help for this broken leg, then that means something bad about me. No.
You're going to think my bones are so weak and brittle.
Yeah.
For me falling down and breaking my leg. Or for a legitimate situation in life, breaking my leg.
Exactly. So, but then like society, when it comes to emotional stuff, like treats it as a personal failure rather than like, no, you deserve support. So you know, regardless of whether or not there's this kind of nature nurture combination that creates the way that you're feeling in terms of your mental health, where some of it is, you know, these genetic predispositions. And it's also then like the life circumstances and experiences that you have. It's that combination. So even if it was something like intrinsic about you, where you're more likely to be depressed or you're more likely to be anxious or any of these other diagnoses, then it still doesn't mean something is broken in you. Like you wouldn't say, oh, I have this like genetic predisposition for, I don't know, I have to think of something.
Brittle bones, osteoporosis.
Yeah. Brittle bones. There we go. And you wouldn't say, oh, well, I just need to never get help for that or figure that out. No, like, does it mean anything about you as a person that you have brittle bones? No. Like, it means that your genes showed up that way. So, like, just get support now, you know?
Or a diabetic. Shit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's more relatable for the vast majority of society.
Yeah, no.
That if you have diabetes, it's not like you're not going to go get insulin. And no one's going to fault you for going to get insulin to keep you alive and to keep you thriving.
Yeah, exactly. So even if it's genetic and that's like literally the makeup of who you are, it still doesn't mean something's wrong with you in like a shameful way, right? It's just like, yeah, that gene showed up that way. So, you know, and then like circumstances, that's outside your control. So just get help, just get support. You can grow and learn. We also, especially in America, especially in the Western world, we have this pressure to just be positive, right? Like positive vibes only, and just like power through things and like let it just roll off our back and ignore reality, really. And if you want to heal and you want to feel better, you actually have to acknowledge all the feelings and not suppress them so that you can work through them, right? That ball of yarn that isn't a ball. So like all that like messy yarn, if you avoid that, guess what's going to happen? It's going to keep getting more and more afraid. You're going to keep bumping up against it. You're also now unconscious of all of these things that are impacting the way you feel and think. And that's impacting your choices. That's impacting your decisions and the way you're interacting with other people. So it's better to go to therapy and be aware.
I think you said it best in the episode we did on like what is therapy and our myths regarding therapy, where you had said as an intern you met that girl that was, you know, having a really shitty depression day, and you went through the checklist and you thought that the goal was to help her not feel sad.
Yeah.
When
like,
actually
get rid of it. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't get rid of it. It was okay. The goal is to help you hold it and know what to do with it and move through life.
And what are the messages that it's giving you? Like, are you sad because there's something in your life that needs to change?
Yeah.
You know, because if you ignore that, then you're ignoring these important messages.
Oh, yeah. It's always a signal, or it gives us information at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I want to touch on, just a quick note. I feel like, especially in the South, it is far more accepted for women to be going to therapy than it is for men to be going to therapy. And I don't think that that's okay. And I just wanted to like be very clear.
Yeah.
Men, women, non-binary, and everyone in between, everyone can benefit from therapy, and it doesn't make you any less of a person or any less of who you are for doing so. And if you're in an environment or a community or a people group or a belief system that causes you to feel like, oh, if I go to therapy, I'll be shamed or looked down on, and you're still thinking about, oh man, I really wish I could go to therapy, change your people. Those aren't your people. They're going to keep you stuck.
Yeah. So yes, ultimately, and just thinking about people in that situation, you know, it's kind of abrupt to be like, I'm just going to stop having any friends and just be alone, right? Which I don't think is what you meant, but just in case. So people listening, you know, like you can keep those people in your life and just don't share that you're going to therapy while you work through this in therapy. And then, you know, you connect more with people that are more aligned with you, and then slowly kind of phase them out. Okay. The other thing, I believe that when we overuse our strengths, that becomes weaknesses and that hurts us. And so I think a lot of the times when we're experiencing struggles with the way that we're feeling or the way that we're thinking or the way that we're functioning, it might actually be that you have this like power that you don't know how to wield. Here are some examples of that is being sensitive, right? So I've talked about this before, probably on the pod, the canary in the coal mine. The canary in the coal mine is in the past, hopefully not anymore, but when they didn't have the technology, when coal miners didn't have the technology to actually bring a piece of tech down into the mines with them to tell them about the air quality, because the air quality can become toxic and kill you, they would bring a canary down because canaries are very sensitive. And sensitivity, being sensitive, which I'm definitely highly sensitive, it means that you pick up information sooner. You notice information like subtle things. So if you're empathetic, you're probably sensitive, right? Because you can like feel the way that other people are feeling without them telling you. You just feel it in your body, right? It also, if you can put patterns together and make sense of them really quickly, that probably means that you're sensitive, right? Like you can make sense of just a little bit and get a ton of information from it. And you also have deeper information processing, which takes more energy. And so you're also more likely to get tired sooner. And so the canary in the coal mine, the canary is sensitive and would notice when, well, unfortunately, more than notice, it would die, right? Mm-hmm. Because it would pick up, it was toxic to the canary before it was humans. And so if the canary died, then they would know we got to get the heck out of here. And so the canary had this power of being sensitive, right? If you're a sensitive person, I mean, that's why I'm a good therapist and I'm a good coach, is because I am sensitive and I can pick all these things up from my clients. It is such a strength in my everyday life. I can feel into things and just really make sense of things. I can tell I have a good bullshit radar, So that's a huge strength. And if I know how to wield it, it's great. But before I learned how to have boundaries, mental boundaries around that, before I knew how to redirect my attention to something else when I was getting overstimulated, then it overstimulated me and it would become anxiety provoking. It also pulled me away from my center. It pulled me away from myself and who I am, because I would be so sensitive to other people's experience that I would fall into theirs and leave myself and leave my seat. Mm. And so that's just one example of these strengths that we have that therapy can help you learn. How do I wield this? Like, how do I manage this so that it is a strength for me and it doesn't actually get overused to the point where it hurts me?
You die.
Until, yeah, exactly.
Don't die like the canary, please.
No, totally. So therapy can really help you like learn, how does your mind work, right? Like, how do these different personality traits or tendencies that you have or skills that you have, how does that work? And is it serving you? In what ways is it serving you? In what ways isn't it? And then how do I manage this so it actually takes care of me instead of hurts me? Which is also similar to the next point, which is like you can learn how to stop running on autopilot, right? And you can unbreak these unhealthy cycles and patterns that you have, whether it's ways of coping with things or just not knowing how to manage your strengths. You are being more intentional instead of just doing what you've always done because you don't know any better. Okay, so AEDP is a type of therapy that I do. Accelerated Experiential Dynamic Psychotherapy. I've talked about it in prior episodes. And that therapy believes that mental illness comes from unwilled and unwanted experiences alone.
Can you explain that more?
Yeah, I was about to.
Oh, sorry. I'm like, oh, nope. I don't get it.
I'll start over. So AEDP, but it believes that mental illness comes from experiencing unwanted and experiences unwillingly. So like these things happen that you don't want, and you experience that alone. So you don't have connection, you don't have support, you don't have clear mirrors. And so it's actually that experience of aloneness in the context of going through these things that creates the emotional distress and these patterns of over relying on yourself to the point where it becomes, again, an example of my last point, right? Like you're overusing the strength Katie is putting together.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I know. I can so resonate with it too, because so many of us selfies, before we become selfies, we were alone in the experiences that we had because we didn't have like a community. We didn't have like the type of family where they were like attuned to us, where they were clear mirrors and they could like actually help us through it. It's way less traumatic, and maybe not even traumatic at all, if you're not alone in that and you can have help making sense of it instead of being alone and like in the echo chamber. I know.
Oh no.
The good news though is that therapy and like listening to this podcast and connecting with people in your life who are emotionally mature and can be a clear mirror for you, that can help you undo that aloneness and reprocess those experiences. Except now you're not alone.
Okay.
Do you want to say anything? You don't have to.
I'm literally going, that's fucked up, because I'm literally going back through in my brain all of the like core moments that I'm like, oh, this was a really big offense. This really sucked. This is like stuck with me. And that's true. Mm-hmm. Every single one of those moments, I was alone. Mm-hmm. Like in the sense of even the times I reached out to help for, people in my life that I thought I could count on, I reached out to them for help and they're like, oh, sorry, I can't be there for you.
Yeah.
And that sucked. And then it was like this pivotal thing that I ended up burying. Yeah. And said, oh, well, I just have to accept it. I have to be strong. I have to just deal with it as it is. And I just have to pretend that I'm okay and hold my head high. And then it just led to like a chain reaction of more shitty, awful things.
Exactly.
And now I'm thinking about this too. And I'm like, my gut feeling, like my
instinct?
Initial kind of an instinct. I think it's a terrible instinct if it's an instinct.
Okay.
So, that's why I don't want to call it an instinct. My like knee-jerk reaction when shitty things happen or when I'm feeling really stressed and overwhelmed from situations that I feel like are spiraling or out of control is to isolate myself.
Yes.
And which then just creates more problems. And so then that by that measure would mean that we're just rewriting traumas and
that's what happens when we're on autopilot is we keep recreating. Yeah.
Fuck.
I know. But
so I got another topic in therapy this week.
You're still working through it though.
I know. I'm just
still working through it.
That's certainly okay. On the positive side, and not to be toxic positivity, but awareness side of this.
Yeah.
Okay, knowing that context that if my gut knee-jerk reaction is to, oh, okay, you're going through a really shitty time, don't, open yourself up to other people because you want to self-isolate and you'll get through it and you just have to put your head down and keep moving. Okay, well, I'm actually going to create more work for me later by doing that. So that's actually the trigger to say, hey, I need to go seek out help in support of my network and my people. And like, obviously I know that, but also I'm like, I'm a strong, independent woman. I can figure this shit out. Yeah. I don't got time for this and other people don't got time for my bullshit. No, that's actually the time where I need to lean into that more.
Well, and I want to validate that the initial traumas that you experienced when you were alone and saying, I can only depend on myself, that was true at the time. So that's a really good example of how that way of being and that way of coping was adaptive and was absolutely necessary, right? So if we could go back and like as we are now to those moments and we could tell you how to cope with it, we actually wouldn't say, go open up to these people who won't be there for you anyway, or don't understand you and are just going to shame you because you didn't have them. What we would probably tell you is like, it gets better because you did depend on yourself. You accurately identified that it's not healthy to open up to these people who aren't going to be there for you. They're just going to shame you, really. And if you stay connected to yourself to the extent that you can, meaning that like, okay, I'm going to become a fitness trainer. I'm going to become a coach. Like, this is what I love, even though it's like exhausting to have to figure this out and work part-time jobs while I build my business. Like, you did that by depending on yourself. And so that was adaptive. And now you're in a place where you're like, okay, I can start unlearning some of that because I don't need to do that anymore. So the operating system can change. So again, don't internalize any stigma around the way that you responded to that, because you responded correctly. Yeah.
See, friends, if you need therapy, this is why you need to work with Alex.
He's like, you got a little extra.
I was about to have a fucking mental breakdown right then and there, and you're like, oh, wait, hold on.
Yeah. I'm keeping you with me. We can definitely brief after though. But yeah, so like right now, like we're co-regulating. Right. So what that means is that like I'm connected to you and I know you because I love you and you're my best friend and I know the way that you think. And so I know we're going to talk about this later, but also like I can be with you and be your clear mirror and be like, and I know that you might go to, oh, I dealt with that wrong. And now, I'm learning how to deal with it right. And it's like, no, it wasn't wrong. It was correct based on the situation and the circumstances. And because you actually did those things, like depending on yourself, that actually got you to where you are, to a place where now, guess what? You have your business and you don't have to be like running around in survival mode, and you're in therapy figuring out, okay, now what does it mean for me? Right? Like it's these layers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So therapy helps you see yourself clearly, fully, without judgment. Which I think we just demonstrated, just a little piece of that. And also just a little side note, like this benefits your relationship in your personal life because you can only meet other people as deeply as you've met yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And therapy deepens your ability to become self-centered, to get to know yourself and go deep with yourself and understand, all these things and make sense of that ball yarn, I'm just thinking about how a lot of the people I've been in romantic relationships with, it was limited because it's like, unfortunately, they weren't going to do the work to go deeper. And it's like, and they wanted the relationship to work. And if they had just gotten help, and I'm sure a lot of you selfies can relate to that. So, all right, we are almost done, I promise. All right. So this is for kind of like a little bit of reflection that you can do, selfies. So if you identified with any of these feelings of shame about therapy or about your feelings, about your mental health, ask yourself, where did I learn this? We all learn this in very subtle ways. And obviously we wouldn't be able to identify every single thing, like 17 magazine on page 3 in October 1996, but it's like, what are the obvious things? Like, where did you learn this belief? And then because we have this double standard between ourselves and other people, would I judge someone else for getting help? Yeah. Or would I be like, no, you should definitely go and get help, right? We're a lot harder on ourselves than we are on other people. So that can often get you out of that like overly critical standard that you put on yourself. And then what might change in your life? Like how you feel, your relationships, the way that you're showing up, the decisions that you're making, if you embraced growth instead of shame.
Yeah. When you were just saying, would I judge someone else for getting help? That made me then think of, okay, well, also, would you judge yourself if you saw your version of success? Like if you were envisioning the version of you that had already received the help and was thriving, and then you're talking to that version of you, and that version of you is like, yeah, how I got here was this, that, and the other. More than likely, you'd be like, that's fucking great. Yeah. That's awesome. I'm so glad that worked for you. And I'm so glad you stuck with it. You wouldn't be like, oh, shame on you for getting therapy and being awesome now. Like,
You got help to become self-aware.
And it worked. Damn.
Yeah. No, totally. And I'll say that, a lot of my clients who are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, they will say, I wish I did this sooner. And they grieve the earlier time in their life that could have been better if they got help sooner.
Yeah. Oh.
So if you're listening to this and you're younger than that, go. And if you're listening to this and you're that age, go.
What's the saying we have in fitness is the best day to start was yesterday, but the second best day to start is today.
Yeah. I've heard the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time is today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly
No,
that.
Totally. All right. Also, people who judge you or have beliefs around like it's not okay to feel anything except for positive and you have to be tough and all that kind of stuff. Just know that emotionally healthy, self-aware people never shame other people for seeking help. They encourage it. Right. And so I think it's important. Of course, you can love the people in your life who are not as self-aware and are still going to have these internalized autopilot patterns, and they're not going to change and they're not invested in looking into that any deeper. That's okay. You can still love them for who they are and accept where they are. And you can disregard their advice and their judgment, right? They don't have good judgment.
Yeah.
And so if they judge you negatively, they're wrong. It's just as easy as that. Also, the people who judge therapy or the people who judge people who are connected to their feelings, expressing their feelings, honoring their feelings and their needs, they are often avoiding their own self-exploration and they have their own internalized judgments around that, right? So it can be really psychologically threatening for them to see someone who's expressing their feelings because it just brings up the feelings in themselves that they're avoiding. And so seeking therapy means you're taking charge of your life. You're not letting these outdated, inaccurate beliefs control you. So in summary, therapy is an act of self-respect, not weakness. And choosing to grow makes you strong, not broken. It makes you courageous. It makes you self-respecting and love yourself, right? So what is one belief that you have about therapy or about what it means to feel uncomfortable feelings, or one belief that you have about being sensitive, anything that you do not like about yourself? What is one belief that you have about that and what it means about you that you're ready to let go of? And ask yourself what's really true based on what we just talked about today. And literally take just a couple minutes right now because all of this is fresh in your mind. So come up with that. If you want to write it down in the notes app in your phone, do it. It's really helpful.
Love it.
Okay, great. If you want to share your experiences or your thoughts related to this, you can go to our Instagram, our TikTok, you can email us. And if you want any follow-up episodes on any of these topics, let me know. Thanks for joining us today. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. Follow us on Instagram at selfcentered.pod or connect with us at selfcenteredthepod@gmail.com.
Stay self-centered, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Peace.